So now we're at the final video for today, and that is going to be the actual changing of the strings of this guitar. To start off with, let's look at the pack of strings that we'll be getting. You can get whatever pack you want. You can do a little bit of research on the different sizes and the different types. There are steel, there are nickel, and there are some fancy chrome plated and cobalt and whatever that you can look at and read on and figure out what type of sound you want your instrument to have. For me, I'm getting the nickels because my guitars, the pickups are bright, so I don't need my strings to be any brighter. Nickels are pretty mellow as far as the sound goes, especially if you compare it to something like steel. Steel will be super bright, super aggressive, and they're actually too much if I put them on these guitars, so I get nickel. Next is the size of the strings. Once again, the size of the strings will make a difference in the way your instrument sounds, and they'll also make a difference in the way it feels and plays to you. Thicker strings will be heavier. They'll have a darker ring, like a bigger bottom end to them, which is nice. And then the trade-off is because they're thicker, they take longer to push down on the fretboard, and they're just resultantly a slower string to use. Once you know what string is either already on your guitar or that you're planning on moving to, then go ahead and purchase them, and then you're going to want to take this and pin it to your wall, so that way you get the same set of strings every single time. I don't even care if it's a different company, but definitely if it is a different change in your size of your strings, and if it's a different change in the type, it will make a difference in the amount of tension and the intonation of your guitar. That would be the distance to your 12th fret. If you're making your neck bend a little more because your strings have changed their tension or straightened out a little more, then you'll notice that the distance to your 12th fret will change, and that's going to now make all your chords sound awful. So if you don't want that to happen, you get the same pack of strings every single time. So we're now going to begin taking off one string. Don't take them all off. One string at a time. The reason for this is it's easier on your neck because you're not completely releasing all the tension and then completely putting it all back on. Instead, you're just barely taking off 1/6 of the pressure and putting it back on, right, and then doing the next step. So we're going to be starting with our big E string. I'm going to take it and I'm going to loosen it. If you don't know which direction to turn this, right, to loosen it, then you probably should stop there, stop right here, right now, and don't change your strings. If you don't know which direction to change it, that means you probably need some help, probably need me to walk through it a little bit. For me, this is moving in a clockwise direction, and that's going to loosen the tension on my string, and I can now pull it out of my tuning machine. So I can pull it out of my tuning machine, and then I can feed it out the back end of the bridge. After I have my one string out, if you like to save the environment, you can recycle these. You can also collect these and send them in to certain people. You have to mail it. It's like certain companies do it, and they'll give you some credits for other strings, or maybe give you some money if you send in a large amount of these. So if you want to, you can save them, or I just now recycle them. After you've taken off the one string, you have a little bit of space. Here's where I normally do my fretboard oiling, but as you saw in the other video, I have already done the fretboard oiling on this guitar. So I'm not going to be doing fretboard oiling right now, but normally this is where I do it, and I would just oil this section of the fretboard. I'm going to find my E string, separate it out from the other strings. So here's my E string. I can now feed it through my bridge. Most people will be feeding their string through the bridge right like that. Me, I'm going to be doing the reverse direction. Some people will have to feed it through the back of the instrument. Mine doesn't have that. If if you're having difficulty feeding it through the back of your instrument, maybe consider having me help you out, or your parents help you out. But usually if you wiggle it around enough, eventually it'll come out the other side. And then from there, you can feed it through and up your instrument. Mine is fed through reverse and then pulled up the other side, and that is to help with the sustain, the bendability of the strings, and the intonation. You don't have to do that with your instrument. So now I have fed the string through the bridge down here at the bottom, and I've run it up, and I'm still holding it with my top hand, and it's now touching my tuning machine right here. I want my tuning machine, the hole, to be facing in line with the string. Currently mine is not, so I'm going to twist my machine nut until the hole is straight with the string. From there, then I can take my string, you can see I'm holding it with my thumb right here to keep any silliness back here from happening, and I'm going to feed it with my hand through that hole. Then I can pull my string tight. So now everything's good. It's kind of like it would be if the guitar was done being strung up right now. But I'm currently holding it with my hand. So now what I want to do is I want to have some kind of measurement to help me make all of my strings wind about the same amount of times. Not too much, not too little. For me, this distance is the tip of my finger. From this crease, this last crease on my finger, my index finger, to the tip of my finger. Just that distance right there is enough to get the amount of winds that I want in every single string. So I'm going to take my string, I'm going to hold it with this hand, bring my index finger and touch right here, and I see the distance that my crease went. It's right there. So I'm holding it right where I need to hold it. I'm now going to bring it back flush. My fingers are touching the thing, and I have slack. You can see I'm pulling my string right now. And you can see just that little bit, the distance of the tip of my finger made a huge gap in the string, right? Now I'm going to take that bit of the string, and I'm going to point it in the direction I need to point it. Okay, so if you need to think about this, right now I need to think about it for whatever reason. For this one, I need to point it down. It's going to be pointing down. You'll see the other ones are going to point a different direction. These underneath ones right here will need to point a different direction. This one's going to be pointing down. So now you can see the string is creased pointing down, and I have a loose bit of string. From here, I'm going to hold my string and then begin tightening. Because I've made that crease, this should be a relatively easy job now to tighten this. If I don't make that crease, your string will want to slip. From here. Now, a lot of times people will keep the string winding underneath the previous one. So to help you kind of see what I'm talking about, right here, they're going to keep the new string right here winding underneath the previous string. It's going to be down underneath. Okay? So now my string is on there, and it's about close to an E. This will probably stretch a little bit, but because I've done this in a way that doesn't allow all the tension to release from the neck, the time that the string is going to be stretching will be a matter of hours instead of days. So I'll be able to play this confidently, this instrument, within a few hours doing it this way. So now I have some excess string up top, plenty excess string. So I'm going to take it, I like to bend it a little bit, and then I cut it off. Kind of close, but with still some excess. Some people will cut them all the way down to the tuning machine. If you want, you can do that. For me, I don't like to do that. I like knowing that there's a little bit extra around here, so that way if for whatever reason I need to restring my string, I have that excess to help me out doing that, right? If you cut it all off and then you need to restring it, a lot of times it won't stay, and now you're going to need to buy a whole new pack of strings, right? So that kind of sucks. So there we go. So now I'm done my E string. I'm going to go ahead and just jump over to my tiny E string and get that one changed, so that way you guys can see what it looks like to change a string, not only on the top where your tuning machines are on the top, but also changing your strings down here on the bottom, because they're a little bit different. Once again, I'm going to be loosening this. Now for me, I'm turning this in a counterclockwise direction. Once it's loose enough, I can just pull it off. There we go. For some people, their strings will be relatively difficult to get off, like their old ones, because of all this winding, like all the spinny bits on the top. If that's the case for you, no problem. You can take the same pliers that you're using to cut the excess strings, and you can just cut the string in half, pull off the straight end out of the back of it, and chuck the spindly bit that came from the top. And that'll allow you to change your strings much more easily. Now I'm going to go ahead and locate my E string. You want to be double checking that you're getting the correct string. A lot of times the strings will be easily recognized by their size. However, it's not a bad idea to also double check. Usually most packaging, they come with color codes for their strings. So for these D'Addarios, the silver cap on my string, right here, you can see I'm looking at two different ones right here. The silver one is actually my tiniest string that I need for this current string change. Once again, feed it through just like you did the E string. Once again, make the hole for your tuning machine in line with your string. Hold it with one hand at the top of the fretboard and feed the top portion through your tuning machine. Now I have the top excess. Once again, tip of my finger length. Boom. Got the length above the tuning machine. The tip of my finger length. Bring it back. You can see now I have a loose bit of string. Now we're going to want to crease it. This one is going to be creasing vertically. And now you can see that the string is actually pointed up. I don't know if you can. It's a thin string, you can't really see it, but it's touching my arm. It's going vertical. This time, we're going to want to hold it. Even though we've creased it, it's not enough for the tiny strings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just keep holding my tuning machine like this, and my little string is pointing down, and the end is now pointing off up towards my arm. And I'm just going to start twisting like that. So I'll let you guys take a quick look at this. You can see this is the bottom end. Currently it's pointing out like this. This is what's connected to the guitar. I'm pointing it down just to get it tight and wound enough that I can actually get some tension on it and let go. So now I feel like I've wound it enough. It's about half of a turn, and this is enough now that if I put some pressure with this hand holding the string, you can see I'm kind of like twisting it like that. Now I'm holding the string tight, and it's not gonna let go. And now I can get back to tightening this. When you do this, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Everyone needs time to learn, right? You're not going to be amazing at this the first time you do it. You probably won't be amazing at it the second, third, fourth, fifth time you do it, right? It takes time to kind of get used to the process, get used to your measurements, and get everything straight in your head about what you need to be doing when. So, give yourself some time. Allow yourself to break a few strings or ruin a few strings. No problem, right? Get your cheap set of strings at Guitar Center, and practice with them and get good at this. Once you can tune or change your strings, tune them up, all that stuff yourself, now there's nothing that's stopping you from making the music that you want to do, learning the things that you want to learn, right? You don't need somebody else to help you anymore. So if you want to go and you want to try out a new set of strings, you can do that. If you want to go and change your tuning to some crazy G, open G for whatever song and learn something new and interesting, right now you can do that. So now the little E is nice and tight. There we go. Got it close to an E. It'll probably stretch a little bit, so I'll have to check on it again. Once again, I'm going to take the excess, give it a little push around the tuning machine in the same direction that I bent it, cut off the excess that's sticking out, and then now we change both our E's. And you can apply the same process to the rest of your strings. Usually I do big down to small, right? But I did the two ones that show you kind of the different ways that you want to hold things depending on where it's located, if your tuning machines are on the top or if the tuning machines are on the bottom. Hopefully that helps clear up everything for you guys, and that you'll feel confident changing your strings in the future.